Thank you for joining our webinar today. We'll get started here in about 1 minute. Well, thank you again for joining today's webinar. The topic today is going to cover transitioning from the PrintTracker Legacy version to the new web-based PrintTracker Pro version. My name is Scott McCauley, and I am going to be walking you through the tool today. But first, we'll start with just a couple reminders on kind of the timeline of how we got here. So PrintTracker Legacy has been available for the past 15 or 16 years. But in December of 2020, we started migrating existing sites over to the new PrintTracker Pro system. Now, this is something that we've done automatically in the background. It hasn't required any interaction from dealers or end users. This is something that, like I said, has been happening in the background since December of last year. So if you're wondering, what do I need to do to get PrintTracker Pro set up? The answer is most of that has already been done for you. Essentially, the main thing is you just need to log into the new PrintTracker Pro system, and we'll cover how to do that. And you can start looking through your account, and you should see most, if not all, of your sites already migrated with DCAs already in place and devices already reporting meters. As of September 30th of this year, PrintTracker support for the legacy system ended. As you may recall from emails that have been sent out throughout this past year, that support ended on the 30th. And then just a reminder again from those emails, December 15th will be the final day for the PrintTracker legacy servers. They'll be shut down at that point, and we'll continue to move forward with the PrintTracker Pro system that we are about to cover now. So and again, just a reminder, just to reiterate what was stated in the past, because when we see some of these timelines, it might feel a little scary if you haven't gotten into the PrintTracker Pro system, feeling like, oh, what do I need to do to get all of my sites migrated? Again, that process has been happening automatically in the background since the end of last year. So at this point, again, we'll just log into the new PrintTracker Pro system, and in your sites, your DCAs and your devices, by and large, should already be there in the system. And then it just becomes a matter of getting familiar with the new interface, and that's what today's webinar is all about. So without further ado, we'll switch over to the PrintTracker Pro web admin. So the way that you access the PrintTracker Pro web admin is at app.printtrackerpro.com. And then you're presented with this login screen. And all you would do is you'd enter your email address. You'd come here to this forgot password link. If you haven't logged into the system before, you can enter your password here, hit submit, and you'll receive an email with instructions on how to set up your password for the first time. Because I've already logged in, I can just come to the login screen, enter my username and password, and log right into the system. Once you log in, it will take you to your dealer account. And in this case, we're going to be working with a fictitious dealer called MyDealer. The first thing that we'll notice is we come into a dashboard, and there's some helpful information here on this dashboard. We can see how many devices are reporting so far in this calendar month. We can see how many DCAs have checked in recently. We can see how many entities or customers have been created in the account and how many events have occurred so far in October. And events would be things like your low toner alerts, a service-related alert, if you've signed up for cartridge replacements to know when a customer has replaced a cartridge in their machine. Those are all types of events that you can see, and this just keeps track of how many of those have occurred so far in the given calendar month. If we move down a little bit further, we can look at an overview of our dealership. How many devices have been created by make, and then the same metric over here by device model. Now, if we look at this chart, we can see that some bars are blue, some bars are gray, and what that indicates is whether or not a device has been marked as managed or non-managed. So anything that's marked in blue would be devices that PrintTracker is actively tracking and is providing meters and supply and alert information for those devices. Now, you may discover devices on a network that you don't want to pay for tracking on. In the PrintTracker Pro system, like our legacy system, you can mark those as non-managed, and what will happen is you'll no longer receive daily meters and supply information for those devices, but you won't be paying for those on a monthly basis, and we'll still give you a free a free meter read once per quarter for all of your devices, including the non-managed devices you aren't paying for. So this dashboard can be helpful if you say, well, I don't want to manage any Epsons, and then if you see any of the Epsons that are marked in blue, you can quickly identify, oh, I need to go mark some of those as non-managed, and you can get your account cleaned up very quickly that way. If we scroll down a little bit further, we can see that we have down here a count of devices by entity. And the new PrintTracker Pro system has introduced the concept of hierarchy that the legacy system didn't offer. So if we come up here to the top of the screen, I can see my dealer, and if I click up here, I can get a list of all of the accounts that are underneath my dealership. Like I said, in PrintTracker Pro, you can now build multiple layers of hierarchy. So for example, I have a parent account here called EV1. If I click on that, I can see that there are two field offices or branches, one in Eagle, one in Meridian. And so what that allows me to do is to be able to see data rolled up at a high level for the entire EV1 account. But then I can also click in and drill down into the individual branches and view the data and reports broken out by each branch. So if we come back up to the My Dealer level now, we can scroll down here. If I click on this EV1, I can see that this is my largest account based on the number of devices being monitored. If I click on that account, I can now see the two field offices, and I can see that the Eagle branch has one more device than the Meridian branch. So again, this is another way that you can help manage your account. Hierarchy can be helpful from just ease of navigating if you want to group your accounts by geography or maybe by sales rep or maybe by some other metric. You can group to help navigation occur more easily, but it also can help control access to the data. So if you want users to only access a certain set of accounts and not have visibility into a different set of accounts, you can use hierarchy to control visibility for your users. So there's a lot of options to cover there with hierarchy, and we'll be holding another webinar in the coming weeks that goes into a lot more detail on hierarchy and different strategies that you can use to get the most out of your hierarchy. So keep an eye out for an email with a webinar link for a deep dive into hierarchy. Obviously, a big part of why we use PrintTracker is we want to keep track of our devices, and we need to see additional details about the devices that we're monitoring. So if we come over here on the left-hand navigation pane, we can see a section called Devices, and we'll click on View Devices. Now, what this is going to show me is a list of my devices that are at my dealer level. If I were to click in here and come down to one of these child accounts, then it would show me the list of devices only at that particular child account. If I want to see all of my devices across my entire dealership, I can stay at the My Dealer level and then come over here and turn on this Include Children toggle. And you can see that once that's turned on, now I see a full list of my devices. I can see the IP address, serial number, and over here I can see the entity name or the customer where that device is located. This tracking status shows me whether tracking is enabled or disabled on this device. Again, disabled devices you won't receive daily meter reads for, but you don't pay for on a monthly basis. So if we click on one of these devices, we can get some additional detail about the device. We can see what its current meter read is, and these meters will be configurable by you as the end user. So what the Print Tracker Pro system does now is we'll collect any meter that a device reports, but then you as the end user have the ability to determine which ones show up on your dashboard, which ones show up in your reports based on the types of meters that you bill for. So if you say, well, we don't ever bill on copies or prints or faxes or scans, I don't want to have those in my dashboard here, just to keep it nice and clean, you have the ability to control the visibility of any of these meters, but Print Tracker will still continue to collect those and store those in the background. If you ever need to go back, sometime in the future to look back and do some historical analysis on meters that you haven't historically been billing on. So all the data gets saved in the back end, but you as the end user have the ability to control what gets viewed in your user interface here. The same applies here with the supplies. Print Tracker will report data on any of the supplies that a machine reports. So in this case, you can see not only do we have the 4 toner cartridges, we also have drums, fusers, maintenance, waste cartridges, belts, anything like that. Again, if the device reports it, we'll go ahead and collect it and present it to you here in the interface. If we come over here to this alerts tab, again, alerts are things like low toner, service-related things, supply replacements. This particular screen will give you visibility into historical alerts for this specific device. We can see when it occurred, what type of alert it was, details about it, and then you also have the ability to update statuses. So if, for example, you have someone who's in charge of managing a shipment of toner, you can come in here, mark this alert as resolved, and say toner shipped on 10/19/21. Then you save the note. This gets marked as resolved. Anyone can come back in and look at that note again. That way, if you have multiple people working on making sure toner shipments are going out, they can mark these as resolved so they don't accidentally get double shipped. And again, this particular screen shows you all the alerts for an individual device. If you come over here to the Manage Alerts page, you can get a list of all of the alerts across all of your devices. So that may be an easier way for your supply management team to manage the alerts and make sure that toner gets shipped out and alerts get marked as resolved. We'll cover settings in just a little bit. Some of the other things that you can see here on a device, per device basis, is a set of reports. This will show you historical meter reads, volume trends over time, so you can see how the device is getting used. You can also look at how supplies are getting used over time, so you can focus in on just the supplies that you want to look at. If you're just curious about the 4 color cartridges, you can see how frequently those are getting used up and replaced. And then over here, you get kind of a heat map of when this particular device does the bulk of its printing. This may help you identify some seasonality around printing trends that may help you maybe forecast or make sure you've got sufficient stock on hand or at the customer location for a big printing month if they happen to print a lot at the end of the quarter, for example. So one other feature on this device page is, let's say I want to do a little deep dive on a Samsung device. I can come in here and search my account for any Samsung devices. And it'll filter the list, and I can see I've got one here at this Meridian location. One of the really nice new features of the Print Tracker Pro system is this option called Remote Technician. And what that does, I'll go ahead and get this started because it may take just a couple seconds to load up the Remote Technician. What this does is it allows you to access any device's web page remotely. And not only access it, but actually interact with the device web page. So you think about all the different things that you can do from a printer's web page. That would be things like, verify meter levels. If there's ever a question on what you're billing, you can pull up the device's web page, send a screenshot to the customer and say, this is exactly what we billed you for. This is exactly what the device is reporting. You can compare the two and hopefully resolve any questions that a customer may have about billing. You can modify device settings. You can update the address book. A lot of devices nowadays will let you upgrade the firmware directly through the device web page. So historically, these would be things that you would have to send a technician on site to handle because that device web page is only accessible within the customer's network. But now through Print Tracker Pro's Remote Technician feature, we can see that if we come over here, I'm now accessing that Samsung's web page, even though I'm not at the customer's location. A lot of these web pages will have authentication. And so if that's true, you can log into the device web page. And now that I'm logged in, I can do things like update the host name on the printer if I needed to. I can update the address book. This particular device has a firmware upgrade version, so I can do that. Again, I'm sitting at my office. I'm not having to roll a truck to send a service technician out on site now to do these things. This is all stuff that I can do from the comfort of my own office. So that's a brand new feature, again, that's only available in Print Tracker Pro. It's called Remote Technician because, again, we think that this is a very valuable feature that's going to help technicians handle a certain portion of their work remotely that they would have had to have done on site. And again, this works with any make or model of device. And it doesn't matter, whether it's a Samsung or an HP or a Kyocera. This Remote Technician feature works on any make and model. So now that we've explored an individual device, oftentimes it's helpful to be able to get the latest meter read for every device in, say, a CSV format, where you can export it out of the tool. You can use it in, import it into another billing system or use it for some ad hoc analysis. And there are a number of ways to pull meters out of Print Tracker. If you just want the current meter read, the simplest way to do that is to come over here on this page and click on this gear icon, and you have an option to export meters to CSV. I can open that CSV, and we'll see here that I have the customer or the entity name where that device is located, the make, model, IP address, MAC address, serial number, the date of the most recent meter read, and then I can see all the meters out here. And again, that's the quickest way to get the current meter read for each device out of the system, so then you can do whatever you need in your other system. And again, we'll cover some more of our custom reporting features here a little bit later on this webinar. One other thing to note is if you only want to export the list of devices that are currently being tracked, that are enabled, and hide any of the devices that you have disabled, you have a filter option here where you can exclude any disabled devices. And now you can see that these would just be a list. This would just be a list of our actively managed devices in Print Tracker Pro. You have a couple other options here where you can add some additional fields to this table. So if you want to know when this device was first discovered, you can add that field and it will show you when the device was first discovered. And you've got a list of other fields here that you can add if you'd like to view that as well. So now let's jump in and talk about settings. So oftentimes, as a dealership, you'll want to set up different types of alerts, like I want to receive an email when a device toner cartridge drops below 25%, or maybe a maintenance kit is below 5%, things like that. You have a couple different options to set up alerts. You can set up defaults for your entire dealership that then get applied all the way down through any customers and devices at your dealership. But you also have the ability to customize those alerts for an individual customer or an individual device. So we'll walk through how to do that. So let's start by setting up our defaults on the dealership level. If I come over here under this admin section, I can click on Manage Entity, and as long as I'm here at my total dealer level, I can come over here to my settings and I'll see a list of settings. Let's start with these device alerts. So I have gone through and configured on my account that I want emails sent to toner_alerts@mydealer.com. I want those enabled so that they'll actually get sent out. And I want to get that alert when a cartridge drops below 25%. And again, this is going to apply to all of my devices and all of my customers at my entire dealership. Now, let's say, for example, that I have one particular customer where I need to get this notification email sent to an additional recipient. I still want it to go to my toner alerts email address, but I also want to send it to the sales rep, because maybe this is kind of a high-touch account where we need to make sure that we're right on top of getting cartridges out. And so I want to also notify the sales rep so that they can keep an eye on making sure supplies get sent on time. So if I want to set that up, then I can come down to that particular customer, and let's say that's this EV1 account. I can open up the device alerts here, and I can see that the alerts are already turned on and they're already going to be sent to this generic email address. But I want to come over here and add salesrep@mydealer.com. And once I add that, we can see now that this reset button pops up over here next to the notification emails. That means that this email address is now using a custom feature that's not inherited from the dealership. So this allows you to, again, if you just want to use the same settings across your entire account, you can set them up in one place and not have to touch them again. But if you do need to customize those, you can always come down to an individual customer or an individual device and modify those settings. Now, if I come back later and I say, I don't want my sales rep to get that anymore, or I need to change the sales rep, you can always reset that, and then this account will start to use the dealer defaults again. And if you change the dealer defaults, it will automatically update this account. Let's say that I do want to include the sales rep here. If I come down and save this setting, and then I come down into one of the field offices, now we'll see that this sales rep is also added to this branch account and any of the devices underneath it. So that's how settings inheritance works. Again, it's a convenient way to set the default up at your dealership level, and if you don't need to change it, then you don't have to touch it. But if you do need to customize any of your settings at a customer or a device level, you do have the flexibility to do that as well. So that's a little bit about how settings work. There's one other setting that I want to cover, and we'll come back up here to the My Dealer level, and that's under this billing preferences. So obviously, every account is going to have a certain time of the month when you bill them. You can configure that here under billing preferences and turn on a billing schedule. So if I enable this, we can see now that I have options of what time during the month, or even multiple times during the month, where I can set that this account is needing to be billed. Now, if you bill all of your customers on the same day every month, then you can set that up here at the My Dealer level where you can say, yep, I bill on the last day of every 1 month or on the 15th day of every month, or maybe some accounts you bill on the 15th day of each quarter of every third month. So you have the flexibility to configure these billing periods at whatever frequency you want. But we'll talk about in just a few minutes when we get into the custom reports where this is helpful. So let's say that by default, I bill every account on the 15th day of the month. So I'm going to save that setting. But then let's say this PPM account has a slightly different contract, and this one gets billed on the last day of the month. So now I have some accounts that are billed on the 15th and a different account that's billed on the last day of the month. So now what I want to be able to do is to receive a report on those billing days. So on the 15th of the month, I want to report with all of my devices that are set to bill on the 15th. And then on the last day of the month, I want a separate report for this PPM account and all of its devices, which are set to bill on the last day of the month. So the way that we configure that is we can come over here to the Insights panel and come down here to the Reports tab. We can see here a number of reports. I want to create a new one for my billing report. You can name it whatever you want. You hit confirm, and now we see we have a new report here. If I click on this, I can configure the report to include exactly what I want. Now, there's a number of different types of reports that you can configure. For example, you can configure a device report, and that may be, I want to see all of my devices that have been created in the last 30 days and email that to me on the last day of the month. Or an install report where you could configure it to say, I want to see any installs that haven't checked in the last 7 days, and I want that emailed to me every Friday. So there's a number of different types of reports. And again, we'll have a webinar coming up that goes into a nice deep dive on custom reports, different use cases that you may think about using, how to set them up. So we'll cover custom reports in a lot more detail in an upcoming webinar. But for today's purposes, we want to set up a billing period report. So again, the idea is I want an email on the 15th and on the last day of the month with the appropriate set of devices that should bill on those days. Now, if you look over here, you can see a bunch of code that may look a little intimidating, and that's okay. This uses a language, it's called SQL, which is a standard language that is used to extract data out of databases. If you don't have expertise in that language or someone in your office isn't familiar with SQL, that's okay. You don't have to be an expert here. Our support team's always happy to help modify this if needed, but it's generally fairly straightforward. We've set up some good defaults here that should work in 99% of the cases, but you as a dealer also have the flexibility to modify things if you need to. So in general, you can just use the default report that's created right here. You can see what it will produce is it will give you a column for the entity that the device is at, the make, model, serial number, so on and so forth about the device. You can see during that billing period, what was the time of the first meter read, what was the time of the last meter read, and then how many days elapsed between the start and end of that billing period. And then you can see the types of meters that will get included. You know, the total meter, you've got total black, total color. We include things like your 3-tier colors if you're billing off of those. And so this report will tell you what the first meter read was during the billing period, what the last meter read was during the billing period, and then it will also calculate the volume difference between the first and the last meter read. So again, in most cases, you won't need to change anything here. If you say, however, you know what, I don't want to see faxes and scans, you can come in, you can remove that from your report. And then if you come down here and save it, that becomes your new template. So now you have a report that's configured to send all of those fields for your billing periods. Now, if you wanted to set this up for your entire dealership, here I created this report at just the PPM entity. So if I wanted to create this to have this report sent out for all of my dealership, I would just come up here to the My Dealer account, and I would create the report here. So in this case, it's only going to be for PPM, but I could duplicate this report. I would copy the report setup out of here. If I've customized any of this, I would create a new report for My Dealer Billing Report. And now I can see that this is going to run for my entire dealership. And I can paste in this unique configuration that I've already modified. And if I hit save here, now I have a report that will work for my entire dealership. If I turn on this Include Children, then it will grab devices across the entire dealership and send those out on whatever schedule I configure. So the next piece is to configure that schedule. So if I click on any of these reports, I can come over here to the Schedules tab and create a new schedule. And this is highly flexible. Let's say that I want to run this for my entire dealership. So I'm going to enter the name of my dealer. That way it will include devices from all of my dealership in this report. Then I can come down here and say, when do I want that email to get sent out? Now, if I was billing all of my customers on the same day, say on the 15th of the month, then I could come in here and just say, well, I only want to get this email on the 15th day of the month because all of my customers are billed on that day. But where we have in our sample dealership here, we have some devices or some customers that are billed on the 15th and some customers that are billed on the last day of the month. I want to receive emails on both of those days. The best practice in that case is to come over here to the Daily tab and say, send this email to me every day. Now, that may sound a bit of overkill where you say, well, I don't want it on the 1st through the 14th because I don't bill any customers on those days. That's okay. Print Tracker will not send an email to you if there's nothing to report. So where you only have 2 billing days, or where we only have 2 billing days set up in our dealership, the 15th and the last day of the month, I can still set this to send daily. And on the 1st of the month, the system will say, oh, there's nobody to bill on this day, so don't send an email. On the 2nd, oh, there's still nobody to bill, so don't send an email. When it gets to the 15th, it will say, oh, here's a set of devices that need billed, and it will compile those into the report based on the configuration that we set up earlier, and it will send that off in an email. And then the same thing on the last day of the month. It will collect up all of those devices that are set to bill on the last day, put them in a report, and send the email off. So again, the best practice is if you have multiple billing periods configured on, across your customers, the best practice is to set this report to send every day, and you'll only get it on the days where you actually have devices to bill. You can come down here and add as many email addresses as you want. And that would be the list of emails, obviously, that would receive this report. And you can even come in and customize the subject line and the body of the email. So, if you have an end customer, for example, that wants to get included on these emails, you could even customize this for customer ABC. So that in the subject line, it shows up, it's got the name of their customer in there. So you do have the ability to customize those things. So once we're done, we'll hit save. And now we have a schedule. You can see that it's enabled. You can see when it's going to, what time of day it's going to send. And if it's already been sent, then the next time you come in here, it'll show you the next time that it's scheduled to send. So you can always see when you would expect to receive the next email based on the schedule that you've configured. So that's a high-level overview of how to set up a custom report, how to schedule that report to be sent on some recurring basis. And again, keep your eye out for an invitation to an upcoming webinar that covers custom reports in a lot more detail. So at this point, I want to walk you through the process of how to set up a new customer in the PrintTracker Pro system. It's a fairly straightforward process. So again, if we consider the concept of hierarchy, let's say I want to add a customer, maybe this EV1 account just opened a new branch. I can come navigate to this EV1 account, and if I hit Add Entity here, it's going to add another branch right here under EV1, and I could call it the Nampa branch, for example. In this particular use case, I want to create just a brand new customer right underneath the My Dealer level. So I'll come up here to My Dealer, and if I hit Add Entity here, it will get added here as just a brand new customer right under the My Dealer account. We'll call this new customer. You can add any notes about the customer if you want. You have the ability to add address information, though you don't need to add that. It is available if you want. So if we save this customer, again, we can see that it was put right underneath the My Dealer account, and I can navigate that to that and view just this individual customer. So obviously, in order for PrintTracker to work, we have to deploy a data collection agent. So if we come over here under installs, we can see there's an option to deploy a new install. And there's a couple ways that you can get the PrintTracker DCA to your end customer. If you happen to be on site and working on the machine that you want to install the data collection agent on, you can come over here and click Download PrintTracker, and it will pull up the data collection agent data link code, and it will download the MSI setup file. The data link code is essentially a unique registration key that is unique to each customer. So that way, when they register the DCA and it goes to upload new devices and meters and alerts and things like that, it says, I need to report all of these devices and meters to this unique data link code so that it shows up under new customer. So you wouldn't ever want to reuse the same data link code across multiple customers, or you're going to have devices get mixed together that you don't want mixed together. So again, a data link code is a unique registration code that's specific to each individual customer. Now let's say you aren't on site and you don't have a tech there. You can always send the customer an email and they will receive an email with instructions on how to set up the DCA. And it's a simple 3-step process. There's really actually only 2 steps to it. It outlines right there in the email exactly what that looks like. So in the email, they get a big download button that will download this MSI file. Once they click on it, it takes them through a setup wizard like what we see here. It's a very straightforward wizard, just your standard installation process. You can customize the location or leave it as the default. But what it will do is it will install the PrintTracker Pro DCA on the machine that they're working off of. And that email also includes this unique data link code here. So all they have to do is download the MSI file, run the installer, and then at the end of this setup process, it will pull up a web browser window like we're going to see here, and it will ask for that data link code. So they copy it out of the email, paste it in, hit activate, and it's now working through the process of registering that DCA with the PrintTracker Pro servers. And we've tried to make this process as simple as possible, so really anyone can run this installer. If anything goes wrong during the installation process, it pops up a big retry button. They just hit retry, and then the DCA continues to register, and they're good to go. Once it's all done, they get this nice message that says there's nothing else for you to do. You can close this browser, and everything's going to continue to run in the background. So you can see that with this Print Tracker Pro installation process, nobody has to know anything about their network. They don't have to know where their devices are located. They don't have to modify any settings in the DCA. All of that can be done by you as the dealer remotely. So you can choose to have a tech go out and install the Print Tracker Pro DCA, but we've made this process simple enough that really anyone can walk through it, and there aren't any settings that they need to configure. They just run the installer, paste in a code, and walk away. And then you as the dealer, if you come back over here to this View Installs page, we can see that this new installation has popped up. We can see what machine it's installed on. If we open this up, we can see some additional information about it, including what operating system it's running on, and things like whether or not it's installed on a laptop. Now that can be helpful if you're trying to troubleshoot maybe why a DCA or certain devices haven't reported. If you see that, oh, this got installed on a laptop, obviously laptops go on vacation, laptops leave the office, and so if you aren't getting meter reads for devices for a while, it might be because the laptop is sitting on a beach somewhere enjoying the sun and the waves. And so that's an account where maybe you'd want to go back to the customer and say, hey, can we get this DCA installed on some sort of workstation or even a server that's not going to go offline so that we can get consistent meter reads. So those are some of the additional pieces of information that the Print Tracker Pro system offers that can help with troubleshooting. So now let's go discover some devices. So typically, by default, the Print Tracker Pro DCA will discover whatever devices are on the network. But let's say you bump into a situation like this, where it didn't find all the devices that you were looking for. You can come in here and click on the Scan for Devices, and you can put in any network segment that you need to scan. And you can add a full segment. You can add a range. So if you want to just scan, 192.168.0.1 through 15, you can configure that. You can even use CIDR notation if you're familiar with that, if you need to scan a large set of IP addresses. But in this particular case, we just need to scan this one network segment. I do want to upload meters from these devices right away. And I'm going to come over here, add devices, and confirm that this is the DCA I want to do the scan. I'll hit confirm. And now Print Tracker is going to go off and execute that. Here is another major difference between the legacy system and the Pro system. The legacy system could take up to a couple hours for that DCA to check in with the Print Tracker servers and say, oh, I can see that I need to go scan this network segment to look for new devices. So again, that could take between 2 to 4 or even more hours for that request to get processed. The Print Tracker Pro system has a real-time DCA, where if we come over here to this Jobs panel, we can see in real time that custom scan we just kicked off a few seconds ago is already running. And if I click on it, I can come down here and view in real time the logs of what that scan job is doing. Now these logs include probably a lot more detail than you would want to see as a dealer, but it's things that our support team can reference to help troubleshoot things. But you can also look through here and you can see, okay, we found a printer at these different sets of IP addresses, and yep, that's what we expect. So again, we can see if we come up here and refresh this job, there's a lot of work going on here in the background. Once it's completed that work, this status will change from running to completed, like we see here on this initialization job. And again, this process is running in real time. You don't have to wait multiple hours anymore for a new setting to get picked up, for a new scan to get processed, for meters to get uploaded. These are things that you can take care of in real time. So if you're trying to troubleshoot an issue, you really can troubleshoot it start to finish all in one setting without having to request the DCA do something and then remember to come back a couple hours to see if it worked or not. So the new Print Tracker Pro Real-Time DCA is a nice new feature that comes with all of the Print Tracker Pro DCAs. So we can now see that this job completed. If we come back over here to our devices page, we can see the list of devices that we just discovered. We can see that they're all going to be tracked and that we uploaded meters only a few seconds ago. And again, then we can come in, look at any of these devices and view the meters and things like that we looked at earlier. So that's the process of getting a new customer set up on the system. That's the benefits. We covered the benefits of the new Print Tracker Pro DCA with its real-time capabilities that help you get problems resolved quickly and view results in real time. The last piece that I want to cover today is how do I get all of the people at my dealership access to this great new tool? So the way that you do that is you come over here to the admin section and you can create new users. Now you have to think through a little bit where you want to create this user. Like I said at the beginning of the webinar, hierarchy can be used to control who gets to see what data. So if you need to add someone who you want to have access to the entire dealership and all of the customers and devices, then you would want to come up to your My Dealer level and create that user here at My Dealer. So I'll come over here to Manage Users, and let's say we want to add a user of Jane Doe. And we'll just put in contact information for Jane Doe. We'll add a password, and again, this is something that you can configure their password for them, or if you want them to set up their own password, you can just put anything in here, and then when they go to that login page, they can hit the Forgot Password button and then configure their own password from there. Then the last step in the process is to figure out what role you want them to have. And we have documentation that explains some of the differences between these, but essentially your master admin has complete control over the entire account. The admin has flexibility to do most things on the account. So in general, probably most of your users would be an admin, maybe a couple master admins if you have a couple people that you want to have access to everything. But if you want to grant access to one of your end customers, you can use this user role, which is essentially like a read-only type access. So they can get in, they can view the list of devices, they can check meter levels or meter values, they can check toner levels, those types of things. But they can't get in and change settings. They can't, remove devices. They can't hide anything. So it's really just if someone wants to view the list of their devices and information about them, that's a great role to give them without giving them access to kind of get in and muddy the waters at all. So we'll create Jane Doe as an admin and hit this Create User. And I'd already created Jane Doe, so she's in the system, but that's how you go about creating a new user. Now, let's say that I want to create a user that has access only to one of my customers. Say this new customer, we've got Sally, who's the office manager there, who wants to be able to see what's going on with the devices. If I come down here to New Customer, and I can add Sally Manager and Sally at office.com, and add contact information for her as well. Again, I could put in any password here, and Sally can go in and modify that password later. But in that case, I would give Sally the user role where it's a read-only access. She's not going to be able to go in and change settings. But what we see is that because Sally was created at the new customer level, she will not have access to any of these other accounts or the dealership level. So if I include the children here, I can see that Sally has access to new customer and none of the other accounts. So that's a way that you can configure users at different levels who have access to different things in the system. So we've covered a lot of ground here in a short period of time. There's obviously a lot more to the tool. Like I said, we'll have upcoming webinars. We've sent out the next, I think, 4 weeks worth of webinars. If you didn't receive an email in the last couple days, you can reach out to our support team and say, hey, I'm interested in additional webinars. Pass along your email address. We'll get you added to that email list of the upcoming webinars. We'll cover things like a deep dive into settings. What are all the different settings that can be configured, and what would you use each setting for? Things like custom reports. We talked about that. How do I use my hierarchy? Let's go into a little more detail on remote technician. How does that work, and what are some of the things I can do with device web pages? So we've got a whole list of upcoming webinars. Again, those are being sent out by email. All of the webinars will also be recorded, so you can go back and rewatch any of those through YouTube on our Print Tracker YouTube channel. We'll have a list of all those webinars available through YouTube as well. So if we jump back over to our slideshow here. So what are the next steps at this point? Really, the main next thing for most dealers is to just log into the system and get familiar with the new interface. You do that again at app.printtrackerpro.com. Hit that forgot password link. Put in your email address. It'll send off the instructions on how to set up your password. Now, some dealers are using a data processor in our legacy system, and for those who aren't familiar with that, the data processor is a tool that can help upload meters into your billing system. If you are using one of those, contact our support team and we can set up a time where we can help you migrate that from the legacy system into the Pro system. So that's not something that you have to try to figure out how to do yourself. Reach out to the support team and we'll schedule a call to kind of walk you through that process and make sure that your new Pro data processor is up and running and you've got time to test it and make sure that you're comfortable with the meters that are getting put in. So again, I'd encourage you to jump into the Pro system, get any new users added that aren't on your account. Make sure that you keep an eye out for those webinars and just get familiar with the new Pro system. Here's a list of helpful information. Again, log into the tool app.printtrackerpro.com. We have a full documentation site on the new Pro system, docs.printtrackerpro.com. And if you have any specific questions, obviously always reach out to our support team at support@printtrackerpro.com. So we appreciate you attending. We appreciate your business. We're really excited for everyone to get on this Pro system and be able to take advantage of all of the nice new features that have been added. And I did see a couple questions come in on our chat during the webinar. It looks like there was a question of, will the job log show any SNMP results? So when we look at the jobs, say during a custom scan, the question is, will that show any SNMP results? So what it does is it will show if a device has been discovered at an IP address. What happens is we ping the IP address to see if we get a response, and that way it lets us know that something is at that IP address. If there is something at that IP address, then we send an SNMP request to see if it responds to SNMP, which would indicate that, yes, this is a printer. If both of those conditions are met, then we'll discover the device, we'll add it to your device list. So only things that respond both to the ping and the SNMP request get added to those job logs. So if it fails one of those two tests, it doesn't get added to the logs. But if it passes both of those two tests, then it does get added to the logs. So that's kind of a way that you can determine the results of that SNMP test is if it's in the list on those logs, then it means it passed both of those. If it's not, then it failed one of the two. So good question. Again, thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you on a future Print Tracker Pro transition webinar. Have a great day.